Welcome to this special election edition of Universe Live. I'm Lily Cook.
And I'm Iori Kennedy. In a deeply divided nation, Americans choose their next president. This campaign year has been unprecedented and unpredictable. As Election Day approached, we sent 13 reporters to Washington, D.C. for 6 days.
Our goals: to talk with voters, find out what people experienced this election year, and learn the results of the race in our nation's capital.
Millions of voters cast their ballots early, either by mail or in person, before the polls opened on Election Day.
A steady stream of people showed up at polling locations all throughout Washington, D.C., including this site, a mile from the White House. There were dozens of locations around the city set up for early voting.
The hardest part is usually getting people to go out to vote. A lot of people like to talk and like to be opinionated about things, but it's all about actually getting out there the day of or the week before, whenever you have early voting.
The New York Times reports more than 82 million Americans voted early this year. Nearly half of the registered voters cast their ballots before Election Day in D.C. This was a similar trend in more than a dozen states. Some states immediately began to process ballots, while others waited until Election Day.
As last-minute voters showed up to the Martin Luther King Jr. Library to vote, many of them felt anxious.
Universe Live reporter Isak Rascon was there on Election Day. Isak, it seems like there have been a lot of apprehensive people in this election.
Early voting numbers are higher than ever, and with that comes higher levels of anxiety. Citizens are filing into the voting centers. But only seconds before, police were evacuating the block,
go on the street. Let's go.
telling everyone to wait or find another voting center.
I think people are very anxious about how whoever side loses, how they're going to react.
After last elections, the insurrection and everything being in D.C., I'm afraid kind of either way about what will happen.
That's probably why they're boarding up windows and stuff downtown.
It feels bigger than just, oh, this party versus this party. It's more about your actual rights and freedoms.
Welcome to D.C.
But there is still much to be hopeful for.
Understanding that we are all stakeholders is a good and positive thing.
People exercising their rights.
It's just a lot more people being active and realizing how much their vote matters.
The D.C. Board of Elections reported over 140,000 ballots received by citizens who participated in early voting this election.
I'm worried about the divisiveness in the country. I worry about my peace and my prosperity.
One thing is certain: the people coming to vote today hope for a better future in politics.
We all care about this country and, come together a little more.
And tension is high for sure, but people more than ever just want to feel safe. Reporting from Washington, D.C. with Universe Live, this is Isak Rascon.
Thanks, Isak. Voter turnout was big in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. It was busy at the polls in Philadelphia on Election Day. After casting their ballots, many voters said they were anxious to hear the final results. Many voters in Philadelphia said they were voting for an individual, while others said they were voting against a candidate.
It means significant to me due to the fact of I'm going to kick Donald Trump out of the office.
Voting polls were located at nearby parks and buildings. There was a steady stream of people at the polling locations throughout the day. Many voters expressed their hope for Harris's victory and were eager to find out the results.
Voters showed off pride for their candidate in more ways than one on Election Day. Many people showed up dressed for work at one of the D.C. voting centers, and some selected their outfits specifically for Election Day.
Cherry blossom sweater. We're here in D.C., so it's a little bit of the city pride.
Some voters wore blue to show support for Kamala Harris, while others chose red for Donald Trump. Judging from the crowd, it was clear that a diverse mix of people turned out to cast their ballots.
Conservatives from all around the world gathered at the Republican Watch Party in Washington, D.C. to see the results of the 2024 presidential election. Universe Live reporter Joshua Carr was at the packed event.
There are dozens of Democrat watch parties all over Washington, D.C. tonight, but there is only one Republican watch party, and it's right here. Toward the beginning of the night, Republicans from just the D.C. area filed into Dirty Water, a local bar, in hopes of a Donald Trump victory.
I think Trump is going to win, actually. We went to Pennsylvania, and even there's a lot of Trump signs just down the road. And just talking to people, I think the vibe is that Trump is going to win.
Although most people attending were Americans, several international Conservative Party-goers came purely for the spectacle.
This is sort of like an MMA fight, and we're just here for the show. So we're ready to see the two parties beat each other up, and we're just eating the popcorn.
As states were called throughout the night, the electricity in the room was palpable. Some partygoers were glued to the TV all night in anticipation. For others, it was just an excuse to get together and have a fun time. The party was still going at 1:22 a.m. when News Nation called the election for Donald Trump. It's safe to say this watch party had a good time tonight. Reporting for Universe Live from Washington, D.C., I'm Joshua Carr.
Because it was the only place in town where a Republican watch party was held, the venue was packed.
I think Donald Trump's going to carry the Rust Belt.
The party kicked off at 6:30 p.m. with just a few attendees milling around the pub. But as the vote counts flashed across the TV screens, the crowds quickly grew. The space was soon packed wall to wall with attendees wearing American flags and MAGA gear. People were optimistic as they discussed the incoming election results.
This is going to be a Reagan landslide. That's what I think. This is going to be a Reagan landslide.
The excitement continued to build as the results became clearer and more predictable.
To quote the movie High Society and Bing Crosby within it, what a swell party this is. Couldn't help it.
Major news networks called the election around 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, declaring Donald Trump as the projected winner.
Democrats, independents, and those just looking for a lively atmosphere gathered at the Park at 14th on election night for the Democratic National Committee's election watch party. Tensions were high as attendees watched MSNBC announce the electoral voting results for each state. We asked registered Democrats how confident they were in Harris's ability to win.
I'm just judging on the percentage of the people that I talked to, and the majority of the people said, voted for Kamala. And we did win D.C. So I'm pretty confident.
I am a little bit worried that her position on Palestine could affect the way that voters perceive her. But overall, I think this country is 100% ready for a woman president.
It looks too close to call. Yeah, so I'm hoping that you'll win.
Democratic voters' confidence in Harris decreased as the night went on.
Howard University hosted a watch party on election night to show support for Kamala Harris, who attended the university as an undergraduate student. Jessica Spencer attended the event. Jessica, how was the turnout?
As you can see, people are standing shoulder to shoulder in this crowd. If anything, it's just an indication of how much this election really means to them. Thousands of people gathered here at the yard at Howard University to show support for causes they care about. The energy was electric and buzzing with excitement. Every time Kamala Harris or a Democratic Party scored a win, the crowd erupted in cheers. Harris supporters knew it would be a tight race, but they remained hopeful for a historic win.
I feel like she'll pull through. I really feel like she'll pull through.
Optimism filled the air, but you could also sense the building tension as the race unfolded.
People here are very excited, very hopeful. There's a lot of joy. I've been looking at the data all night, so I'm feeling a little less joy. She's behind on Northampton.
Trey Madison had his laptop out, closely tracking election results minute by minute.
I've been looking at some numbers out of Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, and she is underperforming Biden's numbers from 4 years ago.
People felt the pressure as Harris and Trump each claimed victories.
Regardless of what the result is, this is history. It is life-changing.
Attendees expressed hope that voters would keep standing for what they believe in, no matter the result of the election.
I just hope people still have hope and they continue, fighting for their struggle.
As it got closer to midnight, tension mounted, and everyone waited to see the final results. As the saying goes, it's not over till it's over, and people here could be waiting for a while. Reporting for Universe Live on the Howard University campus, I'm Jessica Spencer.
The day after the watch party, Kamala Harris delivered her concession speech at Howard University. Universe Live reporter Ethan Pack attended the speech. Ethan, how did the crowd compare to the night before?
The crowd today wasn't as large as last night's watch party, but hundreds of people still came to show their support.
And may God bless the United States of America.
Students, community members, Vice President Harris supporters, and a swarm of media gathered in front of the Frederick Douglass Memorial Hall on the Howard University campus. All eyes focused on one stage, partly surrounded by bulletproof glass.
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
Harris's speech ran less than 15 minutes. She thanked her supporters and asked them not to give up on issues they feel are important.
Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And the fight for our country is always worth it.
Howard University student Skylar Matlock watched Harris's speech. She says she felt both sad and scared when she found out Harris lost the election.
She could have said a lot, but she chose to take the high road, which as a freshman at Howard, I don't know, I look up to her, as our alum.
Craig Burns has lived in D.C. for 32 years. He tells me it was important for him to stand with others in this patriotic crowd and be here in person.
I had to come and see her face because I knew that she was going to talk, she was going to say thank you, and I knew that she was going to say, let's look at the larger picture here.
After Harris finished her speech, most in the crowd quickly dispersed. Some stayed behind to take pictures or to comfort one another. People we talked to say they are proud of the race Vice President Harris ran. Reporting at Howard University for Universe Live, I'm Ethan Pack.
Thanks, Ethan.
While many people in D.C. were sad about the election results, others shared messages of hope.
That's how we do it, eh? That's how we do it. That's exactly how we do it in D.C., baby.
After the election, people gathered outside the White House for different reasons. Some came to reflect, others to peacefully protest, and a few came to simply dance. One man painted a mural to demonstrate his support for both Donald Trump and the Latin American community. Many people in the crowd felt it was important to respect the results of the election.
The people have spoken, and let's respect that. Because if my half of the ship go down, yours ain't staying afloat. There are no lifeboats on this ship we're fighting on. So we're gonna have to change or we're gonna perish together.
Don Folden tells us he plays music of the national anthem from countries around the world to promote unity and peace. He's done this for the past 50 years.
Candidates spent billions of dollars on campaign ads this election cycle.
My 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old complains about all the ads on YouTube.
Hear how swing state voters felt about being overwhelmed with those campaign ads.
I think that's racist, and I think it's simple.
Both political parties used identity politics in the 2024 election. We take a look at what role it played in the race this year.
All eyes were on the U.S. leading up to Election Day. Hear from journalists from around the world about why there is so much international interest in how Americans cast their votes.
Where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack!
Tommy?
Oh.
Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Encouragement. Pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life.
All eyes were on the swing states in the final days of the elections as they were crucial in determining the outcome.
Universe Live reporter Hanas Wright traveled to Philadelphia on Election Day and has more on the campaign efforts. Hanas, there have been a lot of campaigning in Pennsylvania.
That's right. This is where Kamala Harris had her last pep rally here in Philadelphia. Now, the question we're asking ourselves is if there's just been too much campaigning on both sides of the spectrum.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it another political ad campaign? In this election cycle, U.S. political ad spending hit a record high of $12 billion. Political advertising has overwhelmed many voters who are asking themselves, when will it end?
I can't scroll on Instagram. I can't walk down the street without. There's five posters in my direct line of view.
Especially in this swing state, the presidential race is tightening up, but that does not change the fact that many people are simply tired.
We hear the ads constantly. My 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old complains about all the ads on YouTube, and he just cannot wait for tomorrow.
Wake up, eat, sleep, and repeat. But today is a little different. Today is Election Day. Do the ads make a difference?
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Will they change your mind?
Like seeing a billboard to say vote for Trump when you're voting for Harris, like that's not going to change your mind. Nothing is going to make you change your mind.
While people say they are tired of political ad campaigning, they can't deny that they are extremely anxious to find out the results.
Whether you like it or not, the campaigning ends soon because it is Election Day right now. I'm Jonas Wright reporting for Universe Live.
Thanks for the information, Hanas. This election has been quite a whirlwind.
As politicians, locals, and tourists prepared for the election, D.C. Capitol Police were working overtime to make sure everyone was protected. Lauren Willardson went to downtown D.C. to see what security was like. Lauren?
Yeah, honestly, things are surprisingly calm out here right now. Congressional staffers and locals say many are leaving D.C. ahead of the election, but either way, Capitol Police are sparing no efforts in their preparations. With just 2 days to go until the 2024 presidential election, crews are working into the night hours to set up safety precautions around Washington, D.C. The Capitol Building, White House, Vice President's residence, and Treasury Department are among the top sites receiving increased security.
It definitely feels like a bit irritating at times, just trying to come back, has to kind of maneuver around. But at the same time, I'm hearing a lot of dangerous things happening as well, so definitely does make me feel more safe.
At least one layer of protective metal fencing will surround each of these locations. Some sites have barricades, and others, like the White House, have multiple layers of both barricades and fencing. Former President Donald Trump will not be present in D.C. for the election, but there will still be a heightened security presence around his Mar-a-Lago golf club and barriers surrounding the Palm Beach County Convention Center in Florida. Meanwhile, presidential candidate Kamala Harris's alma mater, Howard University, is also under tight security in D.C. ahead of her appearance on election night.
They've made checkpoints around the neighboring area just to ensure that students have safe passage as well as community members.
Police cars and officers are covering almost every street surrounding Howard. All officers will work 12-hour shifts to ensure full police coverage leading up to election night.
It might be of inconvenience to community members who rely on Georgia Avenue or this neighboring area for work.
Despite the intense security presence on campus, students seem to be willing to exchange the inconvenience for the opportunity to be part of such a historic event.
While all this is happening while I'm here, that's crazy to me.
The Howard University website says classes will still be closed for a couple days. However, normal operations are set to resume on November 8th. Reporting from Washington, D.C. for Universe Live, I'm Lauren Willardson.
Distinguishing what's true and what's false is increasingly challenging in this day and age. An organization based in Washington, D.C. worked to combat misinformation during the election. Issue 1 is a nonpartisan group focused on reforming democracy in the United States. They work towards this goal in a number of ways, including advocating for increased funding to protect election officials and gathering information about necessary reform. This election, their focus has been on correcting misinformation. The Issue 1 Vice President for Election Protection says that the majority of Americans encounter false information.
We have needed just a massive communications effort to do that broad public education so that people won't believe false claims or conspiracy theories about the election, with the ultimate goal of, we're trying to mitigate another January 6th, we're trying to mitigate political violence.
Wei Li says that the organization has seen success on many levels, from increased engagement on social media campaigns to veterans and other citizens participating in the election process. Issue 1 will continue their public education efforts until after the congressional certification of the votes on January 6th.
Voters in D.C. lined up around the block, eager to cast their ballots. They waited patiently at the Martin Luther King Jr. Library in downtown D.C. as polls were about to close. Voters used many resources to gather election information. Some voters steered clear of some online resources.
Yeah, I think social media is a hot mess. I choose my words carefully. I don't want to be influenced by social media. I want to be able to make my own decision and collect my information or have my conversations.
Ty Robinson and other voters say misinformation online is a concern. They emphasize the importance of relying on trusted sources.
Identity politics has played a significant role in shaping the landscape of American politics in recent years. Universe Live's Megan Sibley looked into whether that trend continued this presidential election.
We are here at a DC polling station, and as you can see, it is packed. The line is wrapping around the room. We've even seen some voters leave and go to another polling station because this one is just too packed. So clearly, this is an election that matters to a lot of people. What we want to know is, does identity politics play a role in the way people are casting their vote?
Next, please.
The 2020 election happened in the middle of major social movements like Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate, leaving the indelible mark of identity politics on that era of American history. But now it appears the tide has shifted.
What seems to be less polarized than in past elections, in terms of larger numbers of non-white voters turning out to vote for Trump.
Hello to all my divine nine brothers and sisters.
During her campaign, Kamala Harris received criticism for changing her accent in front of black audiences.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Kenneth Jenkins tells us he supports Donald Trump. We asked him how he feels about African American voters choosing Kamala Harris based on her identity as a black woman.
I think that's racist, and I think it's simple. Just like if you were in the high school, there would be children doing 1 + 1 = 2, and then you have people doing trigonometry. I think they're on the simple level. Life isn't that simple. I think that's ridiculous, personally.
Early exit polls show a significant gender gap between Harris and Trump voters, with women favoring Harris by 10 points. We asked one woman why she chose to vote for Harris.
To hopefully protect my right as a woman. I definitely want to protect all women, and I feel like this is our chance to make sure that we can have access to abortion when and if someone needs or chooses to have one.
If the people we've spoken to today are indicative at all of the national sentiment, then what we're dealing with is not a racial divide, but a gendered one. Reporting for Universe Live from Washington, D.C., I'm Megan Sibley.
Many voters don't know what happens to their ballot after they vote. The Board of Elections Director of Communications in D.C. says many people question the integrity of the voting process, but she says the District of Columbia runs safe and secure elections. Election workers collect and process thousands of ballots at vote centers around Washington, D.C. Every day, officials transport ballots in tape bags from vote centers and drop boxes to the Board of Election headquarters. There, a large machine sorts ballots by ward and checks them for signatures. Election workers then open and count ballots.
We work really hard to ensure that all eligible voters here in the District of Columbia are able to cast their ballots in a timely, effective, and secure manner.
Graham says voter fraud is rare. She says that the Board of Elections has systems in place to prevent fraud. These systems include ballot tracking and sharing voter information across state jurisdictions. Graham says voting is a part of our democracy and everyone who can should.
One reason why American elections attract such great international attention is because of the United States' unique voting system known as the Electoral College. The Founding Fathers established the Electoral College during the 1787 Constitutional Convention. It was a compromise between founders who wanted Congress to pick the president and others who argued in favor of a democratic popular vote. To ensure equal representation, the Founding Fathers agreed that each state would receive a number of electors equal to the sum of that state's senators and representatives. Citizens in each state then vote for a presidential candidate, and the electors pledge to vote along with the majority in their state. Although many still support the system, there are also those who do not fully understand its purpose and question its effectiveness in a modern era.
Our voices are heard any way, but like that's not what determines the outcome. So I mean, in an ideal world, like it would be great to just throw it away and like figure out some sort of like ranked voting system or something where like people actually felt like they were heard.
With a total 538 electoral votes available, one candidate needs to win 270 to secure the presidency.
The U.S. presidential election captured global attention, making headlines far beyond the United States. Chloe Peterson has more on the reasons for the international interest in this historic election.
The 2024 U.S. presidential election has attracted the attention of more than just U.S. citizens, with international media flocking from around the world to cover the results for their home countries.
Indian American voters.
From India to Brazil and everywhere in between, the eyes of the world have turned to the USA as the people elect a new president.
The U.S. is already the center of the world in many ways. All of us in the world look on the U.S., your enemies and your allies.
Ben Yaniv of Channel 14 News in Israel says American citizens should understand the international influence of their political decisions.
When an American man or woman goes to the ballot box, they should know that it's not only like their own local interests, it reflects on all over the world and they have a lot of power.
Students from the University del Desarrollo came all the way from their home country of Chile to report on the election. They joined BYU communication students for a discussion about the principles of journalism and the global impact of American politics.
Every decision that is made here, as economic or, political, it may affect our lives.
With a new president comes the promises of fresh policies and shifts in international relationships. The world is watching closely, eager to see how the Trump administration policies will shape the United States and shape the globe. International media will continue to cover the results of this election. For Universe Live in Washington, D.C., I'm Chloe Peterson.
Thanks, Chloe. The world will continue to watch closely to see what changes this new administration will bring.
Street vendors in D.C. cash in on the race for the White House.
I am a Camilla fan, but I am also a businessman.
How vendors adjusted their strategies with political merchandise during the political process.
Faith has taken a smaller place in civic life.
Faith and politics. See how religion played a part in this presidential election.
I need to get rid of some hair. Oh, man. What do you think? Shorter, please. Shorter.
I will stand by you. I will help you through. When you've done all you can do, you can.
Being there. Pass it on.
I will dry your eyes. What you want, baby, I got. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking.
Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to have my seat?
R-E-S-P-C-T. Find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Students at Howard University in Washington, D.C. knew days in advance that Vice President Harris would be returning to her alma mater to watch the election results unfold.
Universe Live reporter Eleanor Lambert was on campus and talked to students about the excitement surrounding Harris's visit.
I'm here outside Howard University where students told me their thoughts on Kamala Harris coming back to her alma mater for election night.
Authorities blocked off dozens of streets. Howard canceled classes in anticipation of the event. Many students tell me they're thrilled to welcome Vice President Kamala Harris back to Howard University. This is more than a visit for them. It's a chance to be part of history.
I'm able to be on campus where Kamala Harris went to school. It's just crazy. I'm literally walking in her footsteps.
The campus is swarming with police cars and media personnel. Security is tight. Students are joking about their brushes with the Secret Service.
Right, and then on the 6th, and then you'll be able to...
It is scary because of like the climate that's happening right now and like threats, but like at the same time it's bringing us all closer together.
Amid the celebration, some students are also noting the challenges. Limited access to certain areas has made it harder to get to dining halls or classes.
We can't even go across our own campus. We have to go all the way around if we want to get anywhere.
Despite these inconveniences, students agree that Harris's visit has created a sense of unity and excitement across campus.
In like our kind of like school group me and like group chats, everyone's like giving like information and helping to educate everyone on like how to vote. So I think it really has brought the student body together in a way.
Whether in support or opposition, students are seizing this moment. Many plan to attend watch parties across campus where emotions are running high and the stakes feel personal.
These students at Howard University are a part of history. Reporting for the Universe Live in Washington, D.C., I'm Eleanor Lambert.
Thanks, Eleanor. It certainly was a historic visit for those students.
Political merchandise was a hot-selling item in the nation's capital leading up to November 5th. However, one thing stood out. It mostly favored one candidate prior to election night.
Kamala Harris merchandise lined the streets of D.C., from t-shirts to pins, as her supporters turned out in full force. The majority of vendors were selling Harris-themed items, which is not too surprising. Washington, D.C. has backed the Democratic presidential candidate in every election for the past 60 years. One vendor was selling merchandise for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, but it was no surprise which candidate drew the most interest from the crowd.
Kamala Harris, the items, they sell more. They sell better for me than Trump.
Another vendor had a unique approach, displaying only Kamala Harris merch on his stand. But if anyone asked, he was prepared.
I did bring it out one time because somebody asked about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a Camilla fan, but I am also a businessman.
We noticed some vendors quickly switched up their business strategy the day after the election results came in. More Trump merchandise appeared on the streets, showing just how fast vendors adapt to shifting demand. As the nation processes this election season, it's clear that political merchandise continues to reflect both personal views and the entrepreneurial spirit.
Businesses in the D.C. area prepared for this election and its aftermath. Business owners noted that D.C. felt quieter than previous elections. Some ground-level businesses in downtown took precaution by boarding up their front windows with plywood ahead of election night, while others chose not to.
As you can see, the city is kind of quiet. Normally it takes me an hour to get to work from my home. It was half hour today. So it's election time, election day, so that's a big factor.
Jimenez chose not to board up his business during election week. He does run specials on his food during election season to boost sales. He says he has been robbed at his restaurant 6 times in the last 5 years, but has not experienced any theft during the 2024 election season.
Individuals and communities came together to find peace and common ground amid the anxiety of the U.S. presidential election. Community members held several events in an effort to reduce voter anxiety on Election Day in Washington, D.C., and among them was a slow-flow yoga class. Kaya Eubanks, a D.C.-based yoga instructor, organized the event and Eaton Wellness hosted.
What I noticed over the past couple of weeks is just people talking about how anxious they were for the election. And I thought, what better tool, resource to provide than yoga?
Eubanks hopes that her yoga class helped bring people together, bridging social and political divides. Others found peace on the day of the election by giving back to their communities, holding peaceful gatherings, and visiting the national monuments around the city.
A number of churches offered refuge from a tense election season by holding candlelight vigils. Universe Live reporter Jackie Durfee attended one of the vigils and tells us why so many people are participating in them.
We spoke with a senior pastor here at Foundry United Methodist Church who said faith is playing a role in D.C. this election season. The church invited people of faith to gather here, pray, and express hope for the future.
The Foundry United Methodist Church was among several churches participating in a candlelight vigil for democracy on the eve of election. Senior pastor Reverend Ginger Gaines Sorelli says people of faith have a responsibility to be actively involved in the public sphere.
Disappear and hatreds cease. Faith has taken a smaller place in civic life. And there's a sense that if we talk about the division of church and state, it feels like that churches or faith communities are not supposed to have a voice. You're not supposed to be engaged. And I think that's a mistake.
Gaines Sorelli says people of faith will have work to do no matter the outcome of the election.
Regardless of who wins the election, we know this country is divided. And so the work of reconciliation, which is part of the work that Christ has given to the church, is going to continue to be our work.
Participant Jason Liu says he attended the vigil because he believes it is crucial for Christians to be involved in this election. He says, in his view, issues such as the climate and women's rights are on the line.
It's just really important to pray and try to pray for peace, pray for safety, but also pray for all the millions of people in this country that decisions that our leaders will make will affect them.
Gaines Sorelli says being a public witness of faith isn't about making others join her religion. It's about helping people love God and love their neighbors. The pastor said it's significant for the candlelight vigils to be taking place here on 16th Street. Why? Because the White House is down this road. Reporting for Universe Live in downtown Washington, D.C., I'm Jackie Durfee.
Thanks, Jackie.
The presidential candidates were not the only ones vying for national attention.
A BYU communications graduate is preparing to compete in the Miss America pageant. Emily, how is she serving her local DC community to make a meaningful impact?
One of the aims of a BYU education is lifelong learning and service. This former BYU student is using her platform as Miss District of Columbia to unite people in a politically divisive time and place.
For years, Katie Ann Powell has had a wish and a dream, that is to become Miss America. The BYU grad represents the nation's capital as Miss D.C. She says she has felt honored to serve and unite the people in her community, even with the widespread political polarization surrounding the 2024 presidential election.
No matter how divisive our world is, in D.C. we can still come together, and we're actually very strong in our nonprofit scene and in our service scene because we understand each other.
Each competitor in the Miss America pageant must raise $3,000. 2 days prior to the elections, Powell held a charity event where she showcased her talent as a harpist. She says music can unite people of different cultures, languages, and countries.
We had a Palestinian sitting next to an Israeli woman, a Jew next to a German, and we were all sitting together in unity, sharing a shared experience with music.
Powell also focuses her charitable work on financial literacy.
Budgets are my love language, and you can catch me on H Street pretty frequently teaching budgeting classes.
She says finances can also unify her community. She tells us many people understand the stresses of personal finances no matter which way they lean politically.
Financial education changes poverty to power.
Oh my gosh! Powell says she still uses what BYU taught her to serve and understand the people of DC.
BYU taught me how to learn. As I learn about different cultures, suddenly I can be immersed and I can cherish and share different cultures, that our cultures are our strength.
Katie Ann Powell will be competing for the Miss America title in January. Reporting from the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. for Universe Live, I'm Emily May.
Thanks for joining us today for this special edition of Universe Live.
To see any of these stories again, visit our YouTube page, or to share them with your friends, check out our website at universe.byu.edu.
Have a great day.